Welcome to the Left Hemispheres podcast. As always, please direct your questions, comments, suggestions, discussion, etc. to us on the blog or via email at lefthemispheres@gmail.com. You can always find us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter at Left Hemispheres. You know the drill. I'm Jack. With me, as always, is Steve.
Hello, everyone.
Adam.
Hello.
And Nick.
Hello.
Also, by the way, guys, please subscribe to the podcast via iTunes if you're listening to us in iTunes. And if you are subscribing to us through iTunes, please go ahead and rate us because it helps us out an awful lot.
We're also now on Reddit. So if you ever visit the Reddit podcast section, please give us a one-up.
Neato, did you do that?
Upvote.
I did do that.
Awesome. All right. So, news.
Yep, real quick. The swear jar for last episode number 13. Our lowest yet, but that's only because Nick wasn't here. I was thinking about just averaging all his other ones together and still charging them, but
yeah, I noticed that there was a tally for me in the email, and I was like,
yeah.
"What the fuck is it?"
Well, there you go. There too. All right, so the tally for last week's episode, or the last episode, was Adam at 12. I was at 15. And Jack was in the lead at 16.
Yeah, but only because I had a $10 word.
You had a $10 word. But that puts us to $43 for the week. And total, we have $249.
And there's some extra money that's going to be thrown into that pot too, Steve. Would you like to tell them about that?
No, you go ahead. You can gloat. Go ahead, gloat.
Well, I mean,
you want to gloat? Just gloat.
Public embarrassment was not part of the bet, but there was a bet that Steve's preferred professional sports team, football team, would win the Super Bowl before mine did, and he lost that bet.
Yeah, I did.
So, and he asked me if I wanted, the money directly towards myself or to Tough Mudder, and I said, well, throw it in the swear jar.
Yeah.
So, not as a discount for me. Yeah, I'm still going to pay what I owe. It'll just be in addition.
Yeah, no, it'll be an addition. We'll tack it onto the. Yeah, so it'll be a plus 50 there. So, yeah, that's a swear jar tally. Three more episodes, including this one. And we'll tally everything up, add on to $50, and send it off to secular charity. And also, as we've had for the past couple episodes, save the last episode because of the snowpocalypse in Boston. Andy from Laughing in Purgatory will be contributing a bit somewhere in our episode. He missed last episode because he had no power, so he couldn't record anything and get it to us in time. But anyway.
Okay, so I have a amusing tale from this afternoon that I'd just like to share with you guys because it's kind of funny. And Nick, you'll appreciate this because you're into the whole vaccine thing.
No. What?
So I had a doctor's appointment today because I needed to get a letter to bring my, prescribed medications with me to Australia next month. Mm. By the way, everybody, I'm going to Australia next month. There's going to be an outtake show while I'm gone. That's
because we can't survive.
And if you're a listener in Sydney or Perth, send an email to the show. We can hang out and have a beer if you want. But I was at the doctor's office to get the letter, and I thought to myself, well, Australia, I know there's not really any particular shots you need to get to go to Australia, but Australia's flu season is April to September. Now, I had the flu this year. Does the flu move east to west or west to east? My doctor didn't know the answer.
You expect him to know something? I mean,
well, I thought seemed to me that it would. I tried looking to find that information.
Well, if you wanted something like that, you should go to a Passport Health type place.
Well, but they just say, what shots they recommend getting. They recommend getting your Hep B and.
Wouldn't the CDC have that information possibly if you dug deep enough?
Not necessarily where it moves. What direction it moves. They say what season is Australia's flu season, which is April to September, but they don't say what direction the flu moves. Which is a weird question that most, I'm sure that question doesn't come up a whole lot.
No.
But my question was, look, is it worth, and for that matter, is it worth getting our flu shot if I'm going to Australia? Because if it moves west to east, then our flu shot isn't going to do me any good anyway, and it's not worth spending the $15, right?
It might not be the same strains that they use, though.
Well, that's
The
exactly
strains
right.
are different.
Yeah,
like,
that's his
regional.
point. That it would be
Yeah.
worthless.
Yeah.
Right. If they have a newer strain than us, then our flu shot isn't going to do me any good right now anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Obama.
Anyway, so if anyone can answer that question, whether the flu virus moves east to west or west to east, I'm terribly curious.
Or if it's
So-
the same strains at all. I mean, it could be a completely different batch.
Right.
Because
Well,
they
yeah.
only pick the
Well,
top few that they try to predict, and those are the ones that they put inside the vaccine. So there's still some that they'll just flat out miss.
Right.
Most likely, I mean, if you went, I'm sure there's an Australian version of the CDC, and I'm sure there would be contact information there, and you could find out something about it. But most likely, you couldn't get that particular vaccine with those strains if it's a different.
Whatever Australia's is, right?
Right.
Because
You
I mean,
couldn't get
I
it.
could get
You
it when
couldn't
I.
get- You
Right.
couldn't get that vaccine here anyway, and it takes 2 weeks for you to build up the immunity from the vaccine.
Right, which is how long I'm there. So even if I could get mineral coverage
Right.
and get the
So it'd be
shot, there's
point-
no point in getting the shot there. Yeah.
Right. So just wear a surgical mask and pray.
Don't
Right.
touch anybody, for God's sake.
All right, into the rest of the show.
Yes. Okay, so this was making the rounds on a few atheist sites, just sharing. A pastor, it really doesn't say where. I mean, there's like this really convoluted forum. Whenever something gets referencing a forum, I'm like, ugh, I'm not going to that. But it's a picture of a bulletin board at a church with a line from Malachi's Old Testament. Malachi 3:8, will a man rob God? And the preacher posted lists of members in the church that don't tithe. It's the non-tithers board, in order to shame them into tithing. I really, how much can we really say about this? Not a whole lot. I mean, it's sort of
I
low
don't
hanging. Yeah, I don't either. It's they can't make me. I don't belong to a church.
I don't understand how he knows.
So
Well,
some
because
churches have like a little envelope where you actually fill it out. Some of them keep track.
Yeah, they do.
I have actually known someone who died, who was a lifelong Catholic, who did not tithe because, frankly, just could not afford it, and they kept track. And when he died, his church would not perform his funeral because he owed
That's
X
low,
amount
man.
of dollars in tithing.
That's just low.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And I find this to be. I mean, this is shameful on their part. They're trying to shame other people. I mean, there's countless reasons why you wouldn't tithe or wouldn't be able to tithe.
Or for that matter, wouldn't put it in the stupid envelope. What if you're just putting cash in the pot and not, getting credit for it?
Well, but then
Which
you're
seems
not
more
doing
Christian to
things
me,
the right
but
way.
Whatever.
You're not
I
doing
just-
things the right way.
The church
Imagine
I
if
grew up
like
in was just a plate, and I'd say 90% was just
Right.
people throwing cash in,
Yeah.
and the envelopes
Same
were
here.
only if you were writing a check and you wanted to keep it private. Nobody actually, you didn't write on it. It had it was you ordered. I'm sure the church ordered these offering envelopes from the Lutheran Church overseers. So they were like pretty standard with all this information on it, but I couldn't tell you if I ever saw anybody fill anything out other than the total.
right, yeah, nobody
Yeah.
ever wrote on them. So,
So this whole thing is totally foreign to me because it was, even the church I grew up in, it was you do what you can, and otherwise nobody pays attention.
Can you imagine if like Visa posted on their website the names of people who were late on their credit card bills?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that the entire point of credit reports?
Public though?
Well, what the fuck's the difference, honestly?
Yeah.
It's like the Seinfeld episode with the where Jerry bounces the check at the bodega. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I didn't really have much to say about that other than the fact that it's detestable.
Yeah.
And I hope people look at that and go, you know what? I don't want to belong to this church anymore. Even if they go to another one. Hey, don't put up with this shit, people. That's all you got to do is just not put up with this shit, and it goes away.
Yeah, that is entirely. It doesn't even get into the argument of whether or not God exists. That preacher is a dick.
Yeah,
That's
just
all
don't
there is to it.
that.
Yeah.
You either get rid of him or you leave. There's plenty of other preachers and there's plenty of other churches out there. It's really quite simple. Not that we have a huge, I'm sure, Christian following that would be listening to this, you know,
It's pretty doubtful.
we'll give you advice anyway. Christians, brothers and sisters. All right. Anyway, moving along. This is a post from Andy from Laughing in Purgatory, actually, and this isn't a reach around for him since he contributes to us. I read this, and this was one of his few non-funny posts. I mean, it's funny, but it's not. Yeah, he's not pulling Poe. He's not spoofing anybody. It's not like a directly comical thing. Well, it kind of is because it involves the Huffington Post, and they're a joke.
But I don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, talking about low-hanging fruit. This is Andy's post entitled The Huffington Post, Atheism and Quentin Tarantino. And he's breaking down an article by an atheist, Nigel Barber, who also writes for Psychology Today, which, by the way, as a tangent, I'm always amazed. Is Psychology Today just basically a humanist front at this point?
Well, I mean, it kind of has been for a long time, just not so openly. I mean, it's
the past couple of years. I'm like, Jesus.
I remember reading. My dad used to get Psychology Today every once in a while, and I mean, this is back, issues from the '80s, and I was always amazed at the things that were written in them. How just open they were about just the human condition and the perspective that they took, on things. And it was very much a humanist perspective.
I used to read it religiously. Yeah, I know. And I kind of got tired of it and then went back to it recently, in the last year or two, just reading it online, and I found that their articles are not really very unbiased at all. To the point where there's just too many things that I've read where I just start playing name that fallacy, and I can't even get through it.
Yeah. Well, the point of I'm just always amazed by. I see all this stuff coming out of Psychology Today, and not about psychology half the time. I mean, I guess it is generally. But, it even makes me go, really? But so the point here is the premise of this article that this Dr. Barber posted to Huffington Post, where he's also a contributor, is the secularization thesis that by the year 2038, atheism will have overtaken religion. I won't go into quoting him. I'll quote Andy, where he boils it down to one sentence, which is, the closer your society is to the Iron Age, the higher chance it is going to cleave to Iron Age beliefs. Basically, as we progress and modernize globally, people are more secure, the fear-based religious beliefs they cling to and the insecurities they have will wane, and therefore so will the religious beliefs that stoke that or are stoked by such insecurities. And I'm with Andy here. Like, I'm always very, very, critical and skeptical of this concept, because it's almost taken this. It's the bad second law of thermodynamics argument, where this is the assumption that everything exists that religion, atheism, and all these other factors exist in a vacuum. And Andy brings up the instability that global warming could pose, or you could insert any other number of factors.
Russian meteors,
Higgs boson.
Yeah, smacking you right in the Urals. There's a million things that could happen that would totally change the trajectory of, the shift. And, this shift is still very much a first world shift, which is the other problem here, is that you're going to have the globe split. If this even works, what he's talking about, yes, it could be where non-belief, and again, I believe this guy's confusing atheism with the nuns, again, as everybody does. But even if you're generous and say the nuns, if they overtake the rest of the world, which we're obviously a minority at this point, all that is going to be even stricter lines of demarcation. You're going to have the Irans versus the Swedens. You know what I mean?
You're going to have the religious refusing to adopt biotech, really,
or anything. Which we already see it in this country.
Well, you see it everywhere. I mean, polio. This is not a tangent.
Yeah.
In Pakistan and Nigeria and some other developing areas, polio has been making a comeback because imams have said that it is a plot by the West to sterilize Muslim men.
Which is a really good cover story.
Yes,
that's some fantastic fear mongering.
Oh yeah.
I'm almost proud of it.
And it's. I mean, it's unfortunately it's
that's
being brought back into this country, and those anti-vax people who no longer see a need because of the security that vaccination has brought. They don't vaccinate their kids, so then now Americans are going to get it. Places that have pretty much eradicated those diseases, but those developing nations are really going to pay a price for it. And polio is a horrible fucking disease.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one here on this podcast can really grasp how bad it is. Our grandparents could,
right? Because
they saw all the people that were in wheelchairs and in crutches and bedridden because of it. But
which essentially sterilizes the population, oddly enough.
Right. Yeah.
Ironically, yeah. Not getting the vaccine will actually potentially sterilize a good chunk of their population.
Right. This is an example of mimetic evolution, and I mean, in my opinion, it's the meme is there, right? The vaccine is the meme. It is the information that's being transferred to provide some advantage to the population. And if it is not adopted by certain populations, they will not reap the benefits of that, and they'll pay the price.
Well, that's no different than the Catholic Church telling Africa that condoms don't stop AIDS.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. You're exactly right. Exactly.
Or just looking farther into the future, that the people that are still so convinced that any type of education and actual evolution is somehow evil, and that they need to eradicate that. When the future of medicine is really going to end up breaking down to genes.
Right.
And it's going to be, sequencing genetic codes and such. So when you get to the point where they want to stop the science that is going to be the literal future of modern medicine, there's going to be a point where that science is going to continue with or without them. And then it's going to be, well, I don't believe in the theory that presents this.
That's already happening.
Well, sure. But when you're going to your doctor to get your DNA sequenced so they can tell what you're most susceptible to, well, they say, well, I don't believe in the science behind that, so I'm not going to get that.
Right.
Well, it's not so much that they.
Well, that's microevolution. That's not macroevolution.
Oh, good point. So Sarah Palin.
The problem with that is it's kind of a double whammy. Like on one hand, they're told that the science behind it isn't accurate, and on the other hand, they're also told that prayer is enough to keep them safe in the first place, so they don't need to worry about it.
Right. Faith moves mountains.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
But then to balance all that out, they have a lot more kids than we do.
Yeah.
So even if a couple of them don't make it, they might still outnumber us.
But anyway, the entire point of this is, I agree with Andy's assessment of the article. I after I read Andy's critique of it, I went and read the article, and I mean, it's one of those statistical analyses that you could sort of weave any story you want, and I don't mean to disparage statistics because highly useful. I use it for my work, but I think there's a whole lot of assumptions built into this, and I try not to do that. I'd rather come to no conclusion than have a false one. The moral of the story, according to Andy, in the best way Andy can, is let's not start sucking each other's dicks quite yet. We're still in quite the fight with Iron Age beliefs, and this the prediction of 2038 when we start overtaking everything. There's a lot that can happen in that meantime. It comes down to economics more than anything else.
Oh.
I don't want to get into the weeds on it because it's not really. Again, I don't even think it's valid. So if anybody wants, they can
Well,
go.
I think the date is definitely ridiculously questionable. I all in all things being equal, I think we are steadily, although slowly, moving towards a Star Trek society, which is atheistic and
Right. Well, but if you remember your Star Trek, there was a there was the Next Generation episode where they brought Picard back to answer for the crimes of humanity, and during that in between period, like the World War III period.
That's the series premiere, the two-parter series premiere.
Right. With
Farpoint.
Q.
With Q,
And
yeah.
it's completely possible for society to advance and then to either reject those advancements, which we saw in the Muslim world and in China during the Middle Ages, to very advanced, for the times, societies that were just rejected the all of that knowledge.
Yeah, you lurch forward
and
then you
right.
get drugged back into the gutter.
It's completely possible for Rick Warren to win.
Ooh.
Well, I bumped up the next story because of the mention of Rick Warren. And again, this is another one of those things where we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. It's mainly just a funny ha-ha thing for me. The other night, Rick Warren just kind of started going fucking crazy at like 4:06 a.m. He started to, which, by the way, you're tweeting angry tweets at 4:06 a.m. There's one of two things that's happened. You're off your meds or you're on the bottle. Take it easy, Rick.
In his defense, where does he live? Because 4:03.
It doesn't matter, even if
doesn't matter if it's 4:06 a.m. Eastern,
which I believe he's in. Is he in California?
That makes it 1 a.m.
He's in
See, now 1
But that
a.m.
does
is not
not
so
mean-
crazy.
1 a.m.
Yeah.
is not that much less crazy.
We don't know if this is 4:06 a.m. or PST, or I mean Eastern Standard or Pacific. I mean, I didn't look at that
Yeah,
because
there's very few time zones where that becomes okay. He would have to be if he was in like Hawaii or French Polynesia. That would probably be all right.
If he was in Japan, it would be 4:06 in the afternoon. That would be perfectly reasonable.
But he's not going to go there because there's not enough white people.
All those heathens.
There's
only
only
so fired up.
there's only like 400,000 Christians in Japan. So
Picture Rick Warren walking around in Tokyo Street pretending to be Godzilla. I'm so big.
literally Godzilla. God hyphen Zilla.
Oh, we need a comic artist.
Boom.
Anyway, so he starts going off again. We don't know what 4:03 a.m.
4:06.
it was. It moved actually when I opened up the real tweet. It's weird.
Really?
Oh no, there's different ones because he went off and started.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, he said the one thing they started defending it at 9 a.m. So that's interesting.
Anyway, so he starts going off about liberal theology, that it cannot sustain a local congregation, it kills churches. In fact, it only survives due to tenured academics. Again, the whole
Elitists.
Anti-academia, anti-education,
Right.
anti-intellectual. Because you know what? You got to be stupid in order to believe this shit. To some level, you do. I mean, you have to literally just shut off, okay, I will no longer accept fact.
Right.
Faith trumps fact.
Right.
But he starts off with liberal theology has never created any university. It just sucks the life out of those that were started by Bible believers. Now, before we proceed, that is profoundly idiotic. It's as if you're saying he's using the historian's fallacy, which I know everybody fucking hates bringing up fallacies all the time, but they don't cease to go away. he's judging modernity based on a past, the way things operated in the past. Just because there was no liberal theology when some of these universities were started by Christians.
Mm-hmm.
There was no liberal theology. So you can't say it. And you know what? It has created universities.
Mhm.
It's transformed them into, in some cases, actual places of learning. You want to go to Liberty and you want to learn about the past and stay there, go right the fuck ahead.
Bob Jones.
Get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah.
But to say that liberal theology has never created a university and it sucks the life out of the universities that were started by Bible believers, it's complete bullshit. Because you can't judge the way things were for the way things are now.
This kind of ties into something I said to you on Facebook earlier this week about how I kind of want to. I'm just, like you said, I'm bored of talking about fallacies, and we should try and move over to cognitive bias just for
the fun,
just for the fun of it, and this is showing I guess it would be called a conservative bias. This is the way things were, and therefore that's the way things should be. There's a big list of cognitive biases that are really interesting to read, and a couple of them are actually crossover with fallacies. But
it's the is ought. I forget what type of fallacy that is, or where that started from.
It is the is ought fallacy.
Yeah, that might be it then. Right, and it's that essential, and this is kind of that conservative thought meme that we consistently rail against. Of back in the days, back in this fictitious society where everything was great for old white dudes.
No, that wasn't fictitious.
Yeah, but everything that's pretty much the only part about it that was true. The rest of it, that gay people didn't exist, that people didn't have premarital sex, that there weren't children born out of wedlock.
There was none of that race mixing.
Yeah, colored people were perfectly happy with their situation in life. All of those complete, outright just misconceptions or fantasies. I'd like to say that they know deep down that it's never going back there, which is the reason that they can just keep bringing it up. But I think that they believe that it's really possible. That if they talk about it often enough, that they'll get enough people. And, it'll be like Glenn Beck's little city that he's going to build in the middle of wherever the hell that is.
Probably Missouri. That's where Eden was.
Just, just the new version of Mayberry.
That's the kind of thing I was talking about. There is a conservative, or there is a cognitive bias for that, where the people have a tendency to believe things that they hear repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's Fox News. Or MSNBC.
I think it was Hitler that said that, actually. Not doing the drawing the Hitler parallel.
No, it was Goebbels. It was Goebbels.
Was it Goebbels? If you repeat a lie often enough and loud enough, then people will accept it as truth.
Yeah, that's a paraphrase, but yeah, I mean that's I don't know word for word either.
It's not the exact. Yeah. Right.
And those guys invented propaganda.
Yeah.
Okay. It's called an availability cascade.
Ooh.
Availability cascade is a self-reinforcing process in which a collective belief gains more and more plausibility through the increasing repetition in public discourse.
Interesting. Because availability bias is when you know that one person who got the flu shot and then got sick, so then you can say, well, everybody else, this must happen because I know somebody. That information is available to you, so that becomes your actual bias.
And that builds up because the only people who mention that they got the flu shot are the people who got the flu shot and got sick, because the people who got the flu shot and didn't get sick don't even think about it and don't say anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is why I think cognitive biases are fucking fascinating and way more interesting than fallacies sometimes.
I think they're always more interesting. I think it's harder to nail down.
Well, a fallacy is kind of static.
You can pick out a logical fallacy pretty easily once you start learning about it. You're like, wait a minute, that makes no sense. That doesn't work.
But we talk about fallacies all the time, so I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit.
No. I understand, because every single time I go, hey, wait a minute. Oh, wait, I don't want to say that. Real quick, I just want to say, if you go to Rick Warren's Twitter page, just look at the picture of him and look at his pants. And this is a more recent tweet by him. This is fantastic, just for its deepity, like Deepak. Despite sentimental testimonies, what people really need today is a grown-up vision of heaven. I offer that without commentary.
I have a grown-up vision of heaven. It's called an orgasm. They happen.
Because the children's vision of heaven is definitely way outdated. With the fluffy clouds and your old dog that died when you were a kid. Your goldfish is still there.
The grown-up vision of heaven is still, by a lot of people's measure, streets paved with gold and everybody gets a mansion.
Everybody becomes an angel.
I went to a funeral a couple years ago, like about two years ago, and that was how one of the mourners who got up there for it was like a multiple eulogy. So he's up in heaven, but he's got his streets of gold and his multiple mansions. I just turned and looked at somebody I knew who was of the same mindset as me, and we just exchanged frightened glances.
It's such a weird thing.
It was actually when his blog was only about a month old, so it probably helped me along there in the beginning of, wow, it's crazy.
It's such an odd thing for people's brains to do, right? I mean, like, the entire concept of life after death is based on the concept of whatever it is that makes you being immaterial, and the first thing that you get as soon as you die is a whole bunch of material shit.
Yep.
Right.
And things that have absolutely no value, like gold.
Yeah. Gold is
gold?
Why do you need a mansion in heaven? You know what?
What does God need with a starship?
Thank you. Well, just like all the battles between angels and demons are always with these. Well, it's Iron Age swords and spears and shields.
Shockingly enough.
Like, the archangels that are ready for battle always have on metal armor. It just seems so ridiculous.
Well, Wicker would be stupid, Adam. Anyway, to bring this full circle here, I want to make damn sure that to everybody that I am in no way defending liberal theology, because that is just a mishmash of rationalization. Obviously, I don't believe liberal theology or Bible-believing fundamentalist theology has any merit whatsoever. One is completely delusional, and the other one is a rationalization because they recognize that the delusion is the basis, but they don't want to give up the faith.
Right. They're both examples of cognitive dissonance.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean delusion, by the way. I'm not hedging my word there.
I disagree on the delusion part.
But there's a level of total delusion there that we could get into later.
The delusional gravitate to the delusions.
Anyway, so moving on, Tebow.
Yeah, again, I don't. The only reason why I bring this up, this is about Tim Tebow cancels his appearance at Robert Jeffress's church. To those that aren't familiar with Robert Jeffress, he is a Texas evangelical preacher who made a lot of noise during the primary portion of the last American presidential race because he is anti-Catholic, so therefore he hated Santorum. He is anti-Mormon, therefore he didn't like Romney, although he came around. It was politically expedient.
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to support Obama.
And of course he hates President Obama. But so Tim Tebow, the non-NFL quarterback, the NFL non-quarterback, I should say, who was going to attend his church and give one of his pep talks on Jesus.
Rah, God.
Yeah, but backed out because you could say that Tim Tebow actually found out what Jeffress talks about on a regular basis and was like, no, I don't want to have anything part of that. Or my opinion is his handlers told him, don't do that because that would be detrimental to your marketability. What I find immensely interesting about all this is how fundamentalist evangelicals constantly attack the Roman Catholics. It's like a good action for the wrong reason, basically. They call them Satanists, and the Vatican is the whore of Babylon. Just any number of just insults thrown at the Roman Catholics. But if you know anything about Christian history, anything at all, I don't know how they get the last 500 years of their Christian history by ignoring and demonizing the first 1500 or 1600, whatever it would be.
Right.
The Catholics built the religion from the ground up, and you could say they invented it. I mean, the Catholics, they don't even have biblical literalism because they know exactly where their Bible came from. They put it together from a whole bunch of different sources. There was things that they edited heavily. There was things they revised. There was things they cut out. There was things they added in. The Catholic Bible has more books than the eventual Protestant one. So to attack the Catholics as the way a lot of the fundamentalist Bible believing evangelicals do is to, and then simultaneously call the Bible the perfect word of God, which they're always talking about the King James Version, correct?
Right. Well,
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Is to completely not know anything or be delusional. Because they look, there's fundamentalist scholars that have to know. That have to know where it came how it's built.
That's where they pull that the Lord works in mysterious ways thing.
Yep.
And
That's how I was going to go.
It was written that way, so by the time it got to me, it was written in a way that I could understand it, and you must listen to me. It's completely megalomaniacal and insane.
Yes. And is that not a delusion?
No, I think it is. Of course, it's a delusion of grandeur, hands down. I mean, you think that you're so fucking important that God wrote this specifically so you could read it in that way. That's amazingly megalomaniacal.
Well, it's just that the people, if they recognize that a group of people put together this particular text out of that mountain of text that they could have used, leaving out the Book of Enoch and all those other kinds of things, you still have to say that you still can say that those people who made those decisions about what goes in and what goes out, all of their decisions were guided by the creator of the universe. Because of course, if he can create an entire universe, he can put together the typeset of what's going to go in his special book, even if it is full of glaring contradictions.
Even though they've got free will and they could theoretically not do it if they didn't want to.
Right, yeah. And this is one of my favorite Christopher Hitchens statements. I can't quote it verbatim, but it's just that it's so preposterous that children can see through it and often do.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation with my son where he was talking about Jesus. His information on this is limited, but he said, he goes, how can his father be God? Because his father was Joseph.
Well, apparently he hasn't watched enough Maury, but
yeah.
Well, nice. That's great. I thought you were going to say something serious for a second there.
Yeah, but he's like, he goes, he can't. He's like, it doesn't work. I'm like, well, so I'm like, what they say is that his father was God and that his mother was Mary, and that Joseph just kind of took care of him, but wasn't his father. He's like, no, I don't think so. It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, then they also say that he actually was God, and he goes, what? And I'm like, if he was God, how could he be his own dad? He's like, I'm like, you're just supposed to believe it, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. They have all the rationalizations that they step through because there are complicated. I mean, hell, you've listened to William Lane Craig. There are complicated rationalizations to get from A to D, right, without acknowledging B and C.
I'm currently reading Lee Strobel's The Case for a Creator.
Mm-hmm.
And it is every single quote-unquote scientist that he interviews for this book. I don't know how they can fucking live with themselves. There's just it's not even rationalization. It's not cognitive dissonance. They have to know that they're lying. There's no other fucking way around it. They have to know that they're lying.
They don't.
Because they make these statements, and it's amazing. I would I mean, the book's from 2004, and the reason I grabbed it from the library, I did not pay for this piece of trash. But I got it from the library because someone on Facebook, I posted a.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking.
What was that? That was there's a book out there, like something about atheism and being a brighter day, and I can't remember the name of the book.
No, it was the atheist book that Adam had sent around, and I think it was in the FLD a week or so ago.
Right.
It was it like a Kickstarter like project?
Right.
So I posted that, and then a friend of mine who's religious posted that as a comment, like the link to the Amazon page for Case for a Creator. And I'm like, and I just assumed that he had posted the Case for Christ, which is Strobel's most famous book, which I have already read, and it is a piece of trash. And it's a well written piece of trash. Strobel has a good ability to write a story, but
wait, he put out the Case for Christ before he put out the Case for a Creator?
right, the Case for Christ was the first one that he put out.
Well, that's just entirely backwards, isn't it?
Well, that makes sense though, doesn't it?
Anyway, yeah. So
a long way from Tim Tebow did something stupid.
Well, again, like I never. It was basically it was like, this is why I thought of this. It was the only reason to bring up Tim Tebow and Robert Jeffress, because when I read that article, that was the thing that popped into my mind, because I've always kind of been curious about that, as how they hold, again, these two simultaneously disparate beliefs, and they never come into conflict somehow.
It's classic doublethink.
Their explanation is that the Catholic Church was corrupt from the beginning.
But it's still just a means to an end for God, right?
Right.
I mean,
that's one of those things like, Satan is an angel, so therefore he doesn't have free will, but he betrayed God, and that makes it not his fault, but he did it anyway, and he still got punished for it because.
Right.
And none of that makes any fucking sense either.
No. Which was that was the brilliance of Milton. that Satan is the most tragic character in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's doing what he had to do.
Yeah, he's just doing his job.
But yet he also has more power than every other angel combined, right? Right. He could bring down the whole system with one conversation in a tree with some woman.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the same book that condemns people for transgressing when they have the same moral capacity as a 1-month-old.
Yeah, that's right.
And therefore condemn all descendants.
That was the thing that never made sense about that story to me. It's just like, well, if you eat from this, you'll learn the difference between good and evil. And when you eat from it, you learn that eating it was bad.
Right.
Well, how
and now
can
I
you
will
be
punish you and all
blamed
your
for that?
descendants.
Now I'm going to punish you for doing the wrong thing. Well, that's fucking ridiculous.
If a 4-year-old pushes their 2-year-old sibling down the stairs and they die, we don't condemn the 4-year-old to death. We don't even put them in jail. Yep. At the most, we might punish the parents for negligence.
Yeah,
right?
maybe put the kid in therapy.
Depending on the circumstances, right?
Yeah, what was God doing letting these 2 1-week-olds play with a live snake?
And apparently has a really good line.
And that snake of all snakes. And why is that snake in the very tree or near the very tree that you're trying to I'll go near that? And then
Did you notice that guy was in his tree?
And have we brought up the fact that it's a talking fucking snake?
But let's not forget that he wasn't even called Satan in the first couple versions.
No.
Oh, no. That wasn't.
He was just the serpent.
If you actually read some historical analyses of religion, not of the claims, it's really just a composite of a whole bunch of different characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same character.
Even
Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub. It's nothing. There's no continuity.
Even the dragon
later on,
Revelation.
and it's basically a retcon. If you want to look at the Bible as a comic book,
I was just going to say that.
Satan is a retcon.
It's like Crisis for the
He's
Egyptians.
Deadpool. He's all the various forms of Deadpool. That should get our geeky listeners a chub.
drop down some biblical wisdom on you all today. You shall not permit a female sorcerer to live. Whoever lies with an animal shall be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord above shall be devoted to destruction. I like that devoted to destruction line. Makes it feel very pious to devote another person to destruction. Those are the words of the Lord, my friends. That was Exodus 22, verses 18 to 20. This is Andrew Hall, and this is the Laughing in Purgatory section of the Left Hemispheres podcast. Here we go. Laughing in Purgatory is brought to you today by the Vatican's official Benedict XVI's papal toilet tissue. Take 2 minutes and get closer to the pontiff while taking a number 2. Benedict XVI's toilet tissue comes in ultra soft, get some stank on the down low tissue, and raw dog TP. This toilet paper has been approved by the College of Cardinals and is guaranteed to work. It's infallible. I went over to see Eddie Izzard over at Harvard Memorial Church yesterday. He was getting well, first let me say that Eddie Izzard is a comedian, British comedian, big into the atheist movement. He was over at the Reason Rally last year in March, spoke there. He's done a variety of other film and TV related stuff. He's a stand-up. Did I say he's a transvestite? Not that it's germane to the conversation about his stand-up, but yes, he has dressed in dresses in the past, which is fine by me. I've never seen the utility of wearing a dress. I've never really tried to, except for that one time in college. But, you know, if that's what he's happy with, then that's what he's happy with. Last night, however, he was not in a dress. He did wear heels, and he wore nail polish. Good for him. The color suited him fine. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Harvest Humanist Group. And like I said, this is and you know, the funny thing about it is that this is the first time I've been in a church for a very long time. And the whole ceremony was done, ironically enough, in a church. And you're going to find this is a common refrain for this bit, is nothing but irony. So I got there, waited out in the cold for about a half an hour, which is fine. You know, I've grown up in this crappy temperature environment during the winter where, you know, it's like 20 degrees every day with a wind chill factor of about 0. And so we finally got inside. And the wood from the pews, I've forgotten how hard and uncomfortable pews are. Not even the little cushions. Sometimes you get, like the church that I went to when I grew up had cushions at least. At least they gave some kind of attempt that you would not be tortured through the entire service. Well, there was none whatsoever, no cushions on these pews. But Eddie Izzard was there, of course, and he gave a great monologue. He talked for a good 35 minutes or so, and then he took about an hour's worth of questions from people. And the questions weren't stupid questions either. The people at the Harvard Humanist Society, they're smart people. There are a lot of undergraduates there from the university, and no one made a fool out of themselves. As against Eddie Izzard, of course, because that's his job. That's his job, to make a fool out of himself. What I did have a problem with, and this was kind of a big fucking problem with me, is that there were Bibles and hymnals in the pews. Now, I checked the Bibles. The Bibles weren't like these cute, like, liberal left kind of Bibles. These were, you know, people getting killed, God committing genocide. The hymnals were all about gentle Jesus. They weren't like Unitarian hymnals that were to the Creator or to some kind of universal spirit. No, Jesus was there. Jesus was there in the Bible, throwing people into hell. Jesus was there in the hymnal, where you're supposed to be singing to him, I guess. I think it's a problem. And I think it's a problem with the movement, of the atheist movement. If you're gonna like give somebody a lifetime award for being an atheist, and doing it in a church where you still have this crappy Iron Age propaganda right there while you're listening to this guy talk about how he's dedicated, you know, less years of his life, the last couple of years of his life, last few years. I don't want to sound like Eddie Izzard is dying. He's not. It sounds like he's going to be the mayor, or he's going to be trying to become the mayor of London in 2012. He's running for office, which is pretty cool. He'd be like the Al Franken of London. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I live in a society where God is everywhere, where this fictitious being is on my freaking money. You know, my kids have to, like, say Pledge of Allegiance and have this crazy fictitious creature mentioned in the Pledge of Allegiance. And at least when I go to see a humanist, atheist celebrity getting an award, I would like to have that crap away from me. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to say. I think most people, upon reflection, would say, yeah, Andy, I think it's a jackass move, basically. It's kind of a douchey move to have Bibles and hymnals in the pews while, you're attending an atheist event. I'm not saying you got to burn the books. I'm not saying you got to, throw them away. I'm just saying take them out of the pews, put them somewhere else, and that would be fine with me. So, hey, everyone, this has been Laughing in Purgatory. I've been doing my little bit here on the Left Hemispheres podcast. I want to say thanks for everyone who's been listening. I want to give a big shout-out to all the new subscribers, to everyone who's listening to this for the first time. Thanks a lot. Take care. I'll see you next time.
So we have the story comes from the Raw story. Colorado lawmaker tells anti-gay Christians, "Get thee to a nunnery." Senator Pat Stedman, a Democrat from Colorado, during his Colorado Civil Unions Act proposition of a bill, he told anti-gay Christians, "Don't claim religion." This is a quote. "Don't claim religion as a reason the law should discriminate." He then goes on a fairly humorous chiding of Christians. "If you don't want to participate in modern society, get yourself to a nunnery. Just live there, go live a monastic life away from modern society, away from people you can't see as equals to yourself, away from the stream of commerce where you may have to serve them or employ them or rent banquet halls to them." And I don't really want to go on too much about this, except for the fact that we need more of this. This is what we need to see constantly, because I believe I don't know if this guy's an atheist or not. I mean, it's unlikely considering demographics.
He probably
But
doesn't
this is what we need.
He probably doesn't think that is reflective of his lifestyle and his achievements.
You take a dig at the senator from Arizona. But my point being, Congresswoman from Arizona. My point being, I don't know what this guy's religious beliefs are. I don't know what his political beliefs are outside of that D next to his name, which really doesn't mean much. But this is what we need to hear more of, because the majority of people in this country don't care what people do. In the privacy of their own homes. It's in their lives. It's nothing to be judged on. We have been and are currently at the mercy of the religious minority, the fundamentalist minority, I should say.
Yeah.
And we need more people, whether they're religious or not, to speak out like this and just tell people, go back to your cave, go back to your monastery, go back to your Vatican, and shut the fuck up. It's absolutely not relevant in the court of public opinion. In the way we make laws in this country, your religious beliefs are irrelevant. They're irrelevant on a larger scale from my point of view, but that is also irrelevant, my point of view, regarding religion.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. That's all I have to say about it.
One thing that I thought was interesting about it is apparently that they're saying that there is an actual part of the bill is that wedding planners and other businesses could actually face jail time for refusing to serve gay or lesbian people because of Colorado's discrimination laws. I just thought that was interesting. That it's following the same discrimination laws that you can't just not serve black people in your store or whatever. Things like this. Like I'm actually okay with them making the decision to not serve certain people. I mean, I don't want to force wedding planners to serve gays. Well, let them put up a straights only sign in their window,
Yeah.
and then they can keep their antiquated morality, right? And then all their
slowly
competitors,
go broke. Yeah.
right? All the competitors can get the new business. Fuck them.
Yeah, they will get the initial insurge from their bigoted buddies.
Right. They'll get their
And
Chick-fil-A
we'll trail
day,
off in
and then
the
it's
long
over.
run. This is the free market argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Vote with your dollar. Because it's not just, and I think that they still keep thinking that the world thinks like them, and that they're only going to lose the gay customers, but they're not
Right.
just going to lose the gay customers. They're going to lose all the people who are sympathetic to that cause. And newsflash, those people now outnumber you.
Yeah.
All I got to say is how does it feel to be a minority?
Well, yeah, and this goes back to what I was saying. I mean, I know for a fact that the majority of Christians aren't like this virulently anti-gay, if at all.
No.
Well, I should say I know for a fact, but it's demographically impossible, really. It's just a loudmouth minority who have a entire party in our national political system at their heel.
They even get their own rebuttal to the State of the Union address.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they most definitely do not represent the majority of American Christians even. Leave us out of it. They don't represent the majority of American Christians. At worst, the majority of American Christians are like, I don't even care. It's not their problem. And more of them are coming around to, that's just kind of fucked up, and I don't want any part of that.
I wonder if there are if there are a group of Christians out there in the world who hear about things like this and want to speak up against it, but actually feel guilty, like they feel like they're betraying their own faith by not being bigoted. You know what I mean?
Just by the law of averages, I would say, yeah.
There has to be a group of people out there who actually don't subscribe to this bullshit and actually feel like by not being a bigot that they are somehow their soul could be in jeopardy.
Well,
like people who are trying to drum up their own hatred.
I would say you don't even have to bring theology into it about the worry about their soul. I mean, although I'm sure that's there too, but it's just like church peer pressure. There's people that go to church and hear things that they fundamentally do not agree with and keep their mouths shut. And this is my biggest problem with.
And I'm not even talking about the peer pressure. I'm talking about the inner turmoil of actually thinking that this is what God thinks, and I don't agree with God.
Oh yeah, well that's
those people have to be out there.
That's every kid who's raised Christian and is gay. I mean,
yeah, how about it?
Or every kid who's raised Christian and is atheist. I mean, they don't know it yet.
Oh yeah, the whole losing faith thing, I'm sure it can be very traumatic. So that's just...
yeah.
Cryptozoology.
Yeah, that.
I love this story because it demonstrates it's kind of in line with the whole creationist museum kind of thing, where this group of people had enough money to buy a journal and put out a journal article, quote unquote, where they allege to have revealed Bigfoot's genome.
It's like alternative medicine.
Actually, it's like a poetry chapbook. It's like a self-publishing.
It's weirder, yeah.
It's like a self-publishing, like
so
it's like the Master P selling mixtapes out of the back of his trunk.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about this is that this is one of those things that lends credence to the pressures of the scientific argument. Like, they're releasing this article and they're releasing the data, and other scientists are taking a look at the data and saying, this is horseshit. Because they released what they claim to be Bigfoot's genome, but all the scientists are saying, now wait a minute, none of this really works. You couldn't grow a thing out of this. It's
so wrong for so many reasons. Like, there's traces of European DNA, and if they think that it's some kind of a hybrid between a mammal and a human, then it wouldn't. If it's in America, then for the age range, it would have to be Native American DNA as opposed to European. Like,
Right.
there's so many things wrong with it.
Well, that's just it. And the samples that they submitted are from all over the place.
And that makes absolutely no sense, because if it was a hybrid between American Indians and whatever Sasquatch creature, then it would not be nearly as hairy as the reports say.
Well,
Because-
that's true also.
Not to mention, it probably wouldn't look like modern Native American DNA, depending
Well,
on how
yeah.
far back it goes.
Well, I mean, right. I mean, you're talking 20,000 years.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Ben Franklin went back in time and fucked the Sasquatch.
and if
Because
I
America.
I would-
Sasquatch is still here, Steve.
other than the time travel part, I would not doubt that, because I do not doubt that Ben Franklin would fuck a Sasquatch.
That's why I chose Ben Franklin.
That was an excellent-
one of the interesting
I
things
commend you on your excellent choice of founding fathers to fuck a Sasquatch.
Next would be Thomas Jefferson himself.
Yeah. That's
He was a deist, after all. Here's what it comes down to me. Taking all the science completely out of it. This is the type of discovery that you should not have to spend a dime of your own money on.
Yeah. You shouldn't have to buy a journal to publish just
Right.
that.
Right.
Exactly.
If it
Yeah.
works, you shouldn't have to do that. Because
There's enough people that are lined up around the block to really look at the research and support and to financially support any type of publication that you want if it's valid.
right,
the
and
fact that they
I
had to
think
do all
honestly
this.
the best argument of that happened in the last year, which is where we now have evidence that Homo sapien and Neanderthal interbreeded.
Right.
And that is something
Around
that
4% of you people have.
yeah,
So it's around 4% of the DNA.
yeah,
for
and
your-
I think
for your
if
penis.
that is not something that science was ready for when it came to light, but they just said, "Well, those are the facts, so we'll take it."
You don't have to like it for it to be true.
Yeah,
Right. Truth is not dependent upon your opinion.
exactly. And
Not a
and-
democracy.
yeah, which is one of I honestly think that in a lot of ways democracy almost does science's weird kind of disturbance.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it's a bad influence on the scientific method.
right,
People
because
wanna
people
commingle-
think that everything can be voted on. Like you can't vote on facts. I'm sorry.
And nor should the scientific method be applied to everything. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, well, science, that'll just be a godless, heartless, social Darwinianism about everything. It's total bullshit.
Right. The idea that that there can be a concrete explanation for something like love somehow makes it less real,
And
because
then
it's not based off the divine. Like, that's the exact fucking opposite. It's more real with a scientific explanation than it is with a supernatural explanation. With the supernatural explanation, love becomes some wishy-washy, lovey-wovey thing. And
Well, it gets reduced to magic, as
Right.
opposed to honestly, I think that
And
a chemical compound or a series of electrical impulses in your neurotransmitters, like that, to me makes it more beautiful than it just being some magic external thing that gets like just a magic wand that hits me on the forehead. Like,
well, one of the weird things is always how theists talk about love and say that two people are destined to be together. That immediately bumps up against the concept of free will.
yeah,
Yet again,
Yeah.
like God chose this person for you.
ChristianMingle.com. These people believe that this poorly written mathematical algorithm, or at least substandard, I mean, compared to what the point of it is God picking out their life mate. I mean, when you watch the commercial, you're just, I'm just, like, I can't believe somebody believes Like, they have the balls to say, God chose this person for me based off of some shitty computer algorithm.
And that's another place where I immediately stop thinking of fallacies and start thinking of cognitive biases, where it's just, look, you've got a lonely, desperate person, and
that's not a fallacy. That's just a
introduce me to anybody, and I'm gay.
It's the same. It's the same.
Faith is the ultimate cognitive bias.
Right. It's the same type of thinking that says that it's okay that you're not violating God's will if you use the rhythm method, but you are if you use a condom.
Sure.
I mean, really, if you believe, then it really doesn't matter if you are ovulated or not. You can get pregnant, right?
Because it's all about magic.
Right.
Well, think of the tremendous pressure. Now, not only are you forced to stay with the person you're married to, no matter how, potentially damaging that relationship could be, but now, you're forced to continue dating this person and eventually marry a person who's not compatible with you because God chose that person for you through this Christian dating site.
Christian dating site, and if you don't marry them, then you're going to hell.
Yes,
right?
yes. Or you're just disappointing him, and nobody wants that.
Yeah. God has never said, "I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed." God has always said, "I'm fucking angry, and I'm gonna fuck you up for it."
Well, he said, "I'm disappointed, but I'm going to fuck you up for it." God is an abusive.
And you will burn.
And at least 7 generations minimum.
If only you had listened. If only you had listened. If you had just listened to me, it would have been okay.
Well, it's that battered wife syndrome.
Baby, I'm sorry. I made this rainbow for you. I just get so mad sometimes.
I promise I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
Oh, final one.
What's the last thing we have here?
The Higgs boson calculations add up to a new Armageddon scenario.
Yes. Douglas Adams had a fantastic quote in Restaurant at the End of the Universe that said, "There is a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it's here, it will instantly disappear and be replaced with something even more bizarre and inexplicable. There is another theory which states that this has already happened." As it turns out, Douglas Adams may have been more right than he realized. The current math around the Higgs field says that really at any given time the universe could be overtaken and succumb by another universe based on something that we don't understand.
We understand just about enough to fuck everything up, but not nearly enough to fix it.
We understand enough to know that if it happens, it happens, and it will happen at the speed of light, and we will just suddenly cease to exist.
So therefore, I don't care.
Which is really the way that I want to go. Yeah, it's going to be that way.
But we don't know.
I don't mean that like a.
Yeah, we don't know what
am I going to do about it?
We don't know what that thing is, or what might cause it, or what catalysts could lead to it happening at all. So
I like how it says here, the universe wants to be in a different state. So eventually to realize that a little bubble of what you might think of as an alternate universe will appear somewhere and will spread out and destroy ours. It's just genius.
Well, is that like the Fifth Element?
Yeah, multipass.
Multipass. It sounds a lot like Texas. Really, I mean,
it's such a.
It wants to be another state, but then it wants to destroy everything else. That sounds a lot like Texas.
I have to say, like every time we have like crazy weather or a rogue meteor or a gay person wins an Oscar, someone starts talking about the end of the world, right? But I give a little more credit to like the physicists who may inadvertently create a new universe and destroy ours. Like it's one thing when the conspiracy nuts or the fundies get all rapture ready, but like when the nerds get nervous, like don't buy green bananas, gentlemen, because like the
they're
fucking
not really
end is
nervous.
nigh.
They're not nervous. They're talking about a potentiality.
Sure. I'm just saying.
So I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the pantheist argument. God is nature, and my reaction is so fucking what?
this is almost more hopeful than the previous argument, which is that the universe will continue to expand until eventually it suffers heat death and there's nothing left.
Or the Big Crunch.
Again, to which I say,
I
so
think
fuck
the Big
what.
Crunch has pretty much been disproven just
Right,
purely by velocity.
Yeah, well, that's because we didn't understand that not only was it expanding, that it was speeding up. Once we discovered that it was speeding up, the Big Crunch was done.
The Big Crunch was done for.
Right.
But now there is this sense that, well, we might be gone, but something else is going to take our place.
Right.
Which at least in some way lends credence to a perpetual universe theory, which has always been one of those,
Yeah.
The abiogenesis thing you can get around by saying, just law of probabilities. But the how did the universe start? Saying that the universe is this thing that is eventually degrading into an ultimate state, and eventually our entire concept of reality is going to just go away in a flash of math. It's brilliant.
Hey, episode title right there. Going away in a flash of math. All right, good night, everybody. As always, please direct your questions, comments, suggestions, or discussion via email at lefthemispheres@gmail.com. And, of course, you can always find us at Facebook, G+, or Twitter at Left Hemispheres, and now at Reddit for Left Hemispheres.
Thanks a lot.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.